Hello there and welcome to a very special season ticket members Q&A, especially for you guys. We thought at Minnesota United it's about time we continue to look after you and give you something a little special. Callum Williams here, the play-by-play voice of Minnesota United, delighted today to be joined by Minnesota's finest, Ethan Finlay and Brent Kallman. Chaps, how are we doing at the moment?
We're good.
Doing well, thanks.
So before we get started, we have a slew of questions for the two Minnesota United players here. So again, thank you very much indeed for giving us those questions. It's obvious to say at the moment we are under very precarious times, it's safe to say. So stay home, stay healthy and look after yourselves. And if you go out to the grocery store and get what you need, fabulous. If you feel the need to not go out, but you still want to get some food or you want to get some beer, just make sure you support local in Minnesota. And today we're doing that and supporting Surly. And make sure if you have a chance, get yourself some Surly Furious IPA. It is absolutely fabulous. So with that in mind, let's get to some of the questions, shall we? I'll show you. Look, we have so many of them. We've got a lot. So I hope you're ready to answer some questions, chaps. Well, first of all, and I apologise to those of you who have sent questions in if I get your names wrong. It's something that I try and pride myself in not getting names wrong, but hey, we all have off days, don't we? So, first question, and this is to both of you. What we'll do is we'll go down the list of questions for both of you first. So this first question comes from Ginger Florhal. Again, apologies if I get that wrong. Brent and Ethan, if you could train during quarantine with any soccer player, who would it be? Ethan, we'll start with you.
Train with any soccer player, who would it be? Man, that's a really good question. One guy who you always see working hard is probably Wayne Rooney. He's kind of a guy that to have the success he's had and the longevity, to me, has been one of these guys who I've always admired and wanted to have the opportunity to play with and train with. So I've heard from some people who played with him in DC that he had a really killer mentality. Even when he came over here in what some would call the retirement league. So he would be a guy that I'd love to train alongside.
Brent?
For me, it would be Giorgio Chiellini, a guy that I love watching the last few years as I've really started to study my craft a lot more and really get into it. A phenomenal center back, very smart, always ahead of the play, doesn't rely on athleticism. And then also like Ethan said, a guy that's done it for a long time and has had great longevity and is performing at a really high level, even at the later stages of his career. So that's who I'd go with.
Starting with a bang, chaps. Well done. Some fabulous. Okay, this is from Mark Powers in section 11. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Go ahead, Brent.
All right. It would have to be 100 duck-sized horses.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, a horse-sized duck, though, I think will end up – I'll scare it away and it'll fly off, or I don't even know if the ducks, they do kind of fly, obviously. But, yeah, I'm going with the one horse-sized duck.
Could you scare it off? You reckon you could scare it away? The big thing.
I think so. I mean, you've always seen like a big goose. I mean, there's some geese that are the same size as people, or nearly a small toddler. I don't know. They usually run from us.
Dude, that beak could do a lot of damage. Imagine the size of its mouth, the beak on that thing, or bill, whatever you call it. I'm
thinking horses are I've seen some decent sized ducks. I don't know.
You chaps do you. Either way, I think you're both in trouble either way. So
sure.
You'll be on the injury report there either way after dealing with that. This comes from Rachel Thiesing. Favorite binge-watching show series during the stay-at-home order?
Which one? I mean, we've been in a stay-at-home order. I've gone through I don't know how many episodes and how many different shows. I would say Ozarks, just because the timing of when it came out was one. And then I just got into, because of Brent, was the McMillions documentary. So that's kind of my little bonus one. That was pretty good.
Yeah. I'll list mine off. There's been a bunch, just like you said. There's been Tiger King at the start.
Wow. Yeah.
Ozark. I was only about halfway through The Wire, so I finished The Wire, which was just fantastic. And then right now they released the most recent season of The Last Kingdom on Netflix. So there's been a lot.
I heard that's a good show. Someone told me
It
to
is.
check that out.
Would recommend.
I can't get into Tiger King, chaps. It's just weird. It's too strange for me. I can't do it, and I'm getting so much abuse from people for not watching it. Is it worth a go?
Wait, which show?
Tiger King. I can't get into it.
Absolutely, you got to do it, Ethan.
I mean, you will. There's 330 plus million people in the United States. The fact that a couple of these individuals live in this country and have the freedom that they do is what makes this country such a fine place to be. I feel like. I mean, it is out there.
Okay, maybe I'll be persuaded. We'll see. Question 4 from Stephanie Stewart in section 2. Which team do you enjoy playing against the most and why?
Montreal.
Why?
Because we beat them 3 times in a row. And if you the last time, quick, because it's only fitting that Ethan's here as well. There was a little spat that happened in the locker room after the game last time when we won this last year in Montreal. That was not started by us. And it just
was not started by any players. How about that?
Yeah, no players. Yeah, no players from either team it was started by. They started it. We kind of ended it. That was a sweet 3 points. That was one of the sweetest, I think.
Yeah. Montreal's a good pick. I would go Chicago. Chicago has been a team that I've had a lot of individual success against, and with my time in Columbus, it was a kind of a rivalry game. And in a way, it's kind of started to feel like a little bit of something for Minnesota, just being, maybe the closest or second closest team behind Kansas City, from a distance standpoint. And kind of that battle for the Midwest, I feel like Chicago kind of becomes one of those teams that we directly compete against, even though they're in the East.
Question 5 from Ayano Jiru in section 22. I have 2 boys, 1 and 2-year-olds. What is the one thing I should keep inconsistent to make them number 1 and number 2 goal scorers for Minnesota United when they grow up?
Keep them attacking. Don't let them get moved back like I did. I'd be scoring 10 goals a year if they didn't move me back to defense. So.
That's a hot take right there. You guys are looking for hot takes. You got one about 7 minutes in. I would say work on your weak foot. I think the best strikers I've seen, the ability they can do it like with both feet makes you one of the most deadliest players on the field. And when you're in front of goal, you can go both ways like that and be deadly. That's probably one of the number 1 skills that I see.
Just back to that hot take quickly there, Brent. I'm not going to let you get away with that. Do either of you must surely remember the Missouri Valley Conference tournament in 2011 when you were playing for Creighton? I actually commentated on that game, and I saw you both playing. Brent, you didn't score so many goals that day.
Oh, man. I was already playing. I was a holding midfielder in college. I wasn't close enough to the goal.
Okay, that was it, was it?
How many college goals did you have? Do you know?
I think I only had –
I would say 3?
I think I only had 2 or 3, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
timely goals, I feel like, though. Timely.
Yeah, one of them was – the first one was at SIUE. That was a pretty big goal. We won 1-0. And then the other one was in the tournament my senior year. It's probably it was the best play score of my life at home against Washington, and that was a big goal as well.
That's right.
Creighton days. Well, we may very well dig into that a little later on as well, go a little bit more in depth. In the meantime, though, question 6 comes from John Doyle in section 32 and several others. Hold your breath, this is a long one. In your opinion, what do you attribute to such a strong start to the season with 2 road wins and 8 goals? It's our strongest start to our MLS history. With the momentum and confidence it's given the team, what are you doing during the pause due to the COVID-19 crisis to keep the momentum and confidence while you wait for the season to restart?
Take it, Ethan.
Yeah, so, I mean, what did we do coming in? I think this was one of the first times that maybe every player I felt like came in with their own personal goals that were very much aligned with what this team wanted to do. And they took accountability in the offseason to come in fit, ready, and willing to compete not only for their spot, but I think to compete for the badge on our chest. And that mentality, I think, is really poured over into the start of the season. You saw it in preseason and resulted in 2 great road wins. Resiliency is, I think, something that this team has and will continue to have. And that goes into the next, part of this question. We're facing some massive adversity as well as everyone around the world is. But I think, the teams that have the ability to withstand this and to come out on the other side better will not only have success this season, in my opinion, but will have success going forward. And I feel like everything that we did in the preseason, guys are going to come back with that same mentality. It is difficult. You're doing a lot of work on your own, but that's exactly what we had to do mostly in the off season. So it's not where we want to be by any means, but I think we have the makeup and we have the characteristics in our individual players that, guys understand that this is not an off season right now, that this is not like a time to just be relaxing. This is a time for us to be preparing for whenever that day is that we can return.
Brent?
Good, Brent?
That's good. You killed it.
Yeah. Since I was so long-winded, I'll shoot one back your way here, Cal. So this question comes from Alec Roddick in section 122. He says, I know that our friendly with Aston Villa was a dream come true for you. How does MNUFC seek out premiership friendlies, and are there more in the works? Being an Arsenal supporter, with my dad supporting Tottenham, either of those clubs a possibility?
Well, first of all, apologies that you're an Arsenal fan. It's not been easy over the course of the last 10 years or so. I don't know. I mean, look, what I will say from an international point of view, Minnesota United have put themselves on the map because of the success of last season, but also because of Allianz Field as well. I've lost count the amount of emails and phone calls and texts that I've fielded about Allianz Field, because let's be honest, it is the finest soccer-specific stadium in the country. When Aston Villa came, for those that don't know, that is my team. I've rooted for them since I was born. It was more strange, more than a dream, having them around Minnesota. I've been around them in the Premier League. I've been around them in the Football League, and it was just so strange seeing them at Blaine, seeing Jack Grealish training at Blaine, and then having a couple of drinks with Dean Smith at Brit Pub, for example. It was just very strange. So, but to answer the question, look, I see no reason why teams of the ilk of Arsenal and Tottenham wouldn't consider coming to play at Allianz Field and play at Minnesota United. There's no reason that the league continues to grow so quickly on the international stage, and we already see them come over here and play in certain MLS stadiums, and now because of Allianz Field, I think Minnesota United have put themselves in that conversation for sure. So we'll see. Thanks for doing that, Ethan. That was caught me off guard a little bit. So number 7 for you guys. Suzanne Deronek from section 10 says, who were your soccer heroes growing up and now?
Go ahead, Ethan.
Putting me back on the spot. So I already kind of touched upon it. Wayne Rooney, when he kind of broke out, it would have been 2004 Euros. I believe they were in Greece or Portugal. Just an awesome experience just to kind of be able to see him play. It wasn't really a live situation, but I remember I got the DVD, I think that Christmas, of all the goals and all the highlights and whatnot. And yeah, throw it back in the day, there wasn't a bunch of soccer on TV. You couldn't just turn the channel on. But Wayne Rooney, that to me was kind of his coming out party, and then just watching him progress as you'd watch him on, ball out in the Premier League and ball out for Man United. So he was always one of those guys. A guy now, I don't know. That's really difficult. It's kind of, in a weird way, this might sound weird, but once you're a professional and you're doing it, you don't really find yourself idolizing other players. You try to find players that I would say that you would like to mimic and try to replicate their ability. One of those guys that I've always tried to, he doesn't really play, I don't think, anymore, to be honest, is Jesus Navas. Was a guy who was an all-and-out winger when he was at Man City and Sevilla. One of those guys that I would like to watch. Not maybe a top 50 or 100 player that people would think of, but he was a guy that I think I had some similar skill sets, and I used to like watching him play.
I think you're much quicker than Jesus Navas, no doubt about it. Brent?
For me, similar to Ethan, I didn't watch much soccer growing up. If I could go back in time, I would have. I think it would have made me a better player. But I would have to say Tony Sana when I was a kid, because he was a local guy that did it on, the World Cup. He did the biggest stage. And also he would be around. Like, I got to meet him a couple times as a kid. And that was really cool. So he was probably the guy I looked up to the most. And then now, we already touched on it, Chiellini. I watch a ton of Chiellini clips and highlights. I try to take things, like Ethan said, mimic him all the time. Unfortunately, I'm not left-footed. I wish I was. And then as far as other players, there's not really another player. A team I watch, I like Atletico Madrid a lot. Their mentality when it comes to defending as a team is just something I really like, and their ability to play anti-football, if you will, is just something I like. It kind of fascinates me. So.
Yeah, Godin's not bad, is he? Right, question 8. This is from Jason Swenson, who's in the Field Club. He asks, what is your favourite video game, and who is the best gamer on the team?
Go ahead, Brent.
Call of Duty. Call of Duty right now. That's what we're playing.
Yeah, Call of Duty Warzone is unbelievable. This game is – I hadn't touched my PS4 in I don't know how many months, maybe years I could go to. I had a little bit of a Fortnite run when Fortnite first came out, and that was maybe 3-4 years ago now. But this new Call of Duty game out that, I mean, it's coincided with this, pandemic and this postponement of the season, which probably isn't helpful for my addiction to it. But that's been the game of choice, I think.
And is that a team-wide thing? Is that the game that everyone's playing at the moment?
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, Boxy, there's definitely a couple other guys. We don't actually always play together. It's kind of funny. It's a great way, at least I have, it's a great way to like reconnect with people maybe you haven't talked to in a while. Like I play with some high school friends just because we are friends on PS4, and I probably talked to them more now in the last 3 to 4 weeks than I had, in the years past. So
100%. Same thing for me. I'm playing with, guys I used to play with here at Minnesota United. Same thing, old friends. And then as far as the best gamer on the team, for that game at least, it's got to be Schoenfeld, right?
Yeah, Shoney's pretty. Shoney with first-person shooters is probably the top guy, I'd say. But I think Molino or DSC, Dane St. Clair for FIFA. Those two are probably neck and neck. Sorry, Tyler, but you embarrassed Kansas City. Good joke. 4-0. You should have pulled yourself after the second goal.
Question 10 comes from Jesus Chacon in the supporters section, who says, favourite game as a loon? Either? Anyone?
I mean, I can go. That's so hard to say. Favorite game. I'll never quite have a moment like the Seattle game, right? My very first game for the club, scoring a goal. That I don't think I'll have another moment like that. Right. I hope I have another moment like that surpasses that. But at this moment, that's one that pretty cemented from a personal, and then just yeah, that was a big moment.
We lost that game, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
That was an absolute nightmare. We played really, really well.
We did. We lost.
I remember the goal we gave up, both of them, to lose that game.
Yeah.
Mine would be the first win against Salt Lake in 2017, probably. That was a really special moment for everybody at the club and all the fans and all the the people that new or old. If you had just joined because we went to MLS and you just knew about the team, or if you were somebody who was there in the past going up at Blaine at NSC, and then you got to witness that first win at what's the stadium even called? TCF Bank. Yeah, it was a special moment.
Question 11 comes from Isaiah Lufkin in the supporters section. This is a really intriguing one. Cut, bench, or start? Messi, Ronaldo, Pele.
This is an absurd question.
I mean, this one's not like. I mean, I have to cut Pele, and this is going to be bad because it's the game is so different. So that's probably our generation not appreciating. But I've watched plenty enough video to see that like there was just a different game athleticism wise from the types of players that were out there. And I mean, you're starting Ronaldo, and I'll explain my decision why. You're starting Ronaldo, and you're bringing Messi off the bench, because if you try to bring Messi off or try to bring Ronaldo off the bench, I mean, this guy's already lost after you've benched him. So I'm going to get one of the best players out there thinking he's starting, and then I'm going to sub somebody in pretty early. It's going to be Messi.
I disagree, and here's why.
Utilizing all the players. Messi
is the best all-around player. He's much better. Ronaldo is a poacher at this stage of his career. So you bring Ronaldo in off the bench if you need a goal.
I think Ronaldo might not even get in the game. He might just say, hamstring, I'm good. Sorry, guys.
Oh, and as a manager, you're gonna give into that kind of behavior.
You can't do anything about it. If he says he's injured, I can't do anything about it. I'm managing him. All right, I'm putting him in first, and Messi's gonna come off the bench. I've had a conversation with Messi already. He knows.
Okay, so that's gonna be your management style. You're gonna appease the people who are babies, and I'm gonna make them form to my culture. Okay.
I'm gonna maximize my superstars.
Because this is the never-ending debate, isn't it? Ronaldo or Messi?
Yeah.
I happen to agree with you in terms of the way Ronaldo is now. He's not the player he was. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad player. He's still one of the best players in the world, in my opinion. But during their career, at their prime, I must admit, I would always choose Ronaldo because Messi has remained comfortable at Barcelona throughout the entirety of his career. That's not a bad thing, but I think more challenges have come in the way of Cristiano Ronaldo during his career. And I'll never forget that season at Manchester United when he played left wing and scored 42 goals. 42 from left wing. I couldn't see Messi doing that in the Premier League. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Has anybody scored 42 goals? When's the last time somebody beat 42 goals in the Premier League?
That's a very good question.
And isn't that crazy? You think about how many goals have been scored by Man City over the last couple of years as well. I mean, obviously they're getting it spread out, but I mean, he was dominant in the best league in the world.
Brent,
whoa! Now you're starting a whole different debate here.
It's top to bottom. It's the best league in the world.
Oh, we could go on it, but you want to go down this? Do we want to go down this? Do we want to have this conversation?
No, this is pretty easy. It's the best league in the world. It's the hardest league in the world to win in, week out, and that's what makes it the best. I mean, there's just not the same parity Germany, I think, has gotten a lot better. Germany, I think,
here comes the parity word.
No, but I'm just telling you. Hey, Barcelona B some weeks can beat the lowest team in La Liga, all right? Barcelona can field all their subs, in my opinion, some weeks. And that's how talented those teams are. I get that. But that also tells me how, I think some of those teams in the lower end are just – they're outmatched. They're outspent, really, is what it is.
But the teams at the top of the EPL are not as dominant as the teams at the top of La Liga. Isn't that possible?
They're not, but I also think a part of it is because of the grind they have to face week in, week out. That's why it's one of their challenges, I think, that they have when they go to play in Europe.
Do we not think, and people might say I'm biased now being English, but I agree with you, Ethan, it is the best league in the world. And my main reason for this is because if you were to compare somebody, let's say, Everton up against a similar team, like Real Sociedad or Getafe or someone like that, if you look at the rosters and the quality of them, I think the Premier League team, hands down, they've got better rosters. And I understand your point, Brent. At the top end, I think La Liga is probably better. But league-wide, I can't see an argument. Convince me otherwise.
Well, I would say over the course of the last 10 years, what league has had the most success in Champions League and Europa League? Yeah, and that's so that's the top tier of each league, which is kind of your guys' point. So they have that. They have the top tier and then that second tier. If there was a competition for the middle of each league or the bottom half of each league, I'd be really curious to see what it is because there's probably more quality on those teams, but I don't think they play as good of a style, and they're used to playing as good of a style as you see in Spain. So I just think it'd be interesting to see how they match up. I don't know.
We could keep this debate going all day, couldn't we? How about we have you, the supporter, tweet at us and give us your thoughts because this is a debate that could go on for eons. So let's not try and solve it now, shall we? Let's move on to the questions. Question 12 comes from Robert Hansen in section 15. With all the previous experience and the new influx of Latino players on the team, have you worked on improving your Spanish?
Not as much as I would like, or as I should have, I think. I have learned more Spanish and more Portuguese because we had a lot of Brazilian players at one point. Enough to say hello and bye to guys, and enough to communicate with them on the field. Simple things like turn, man on, left, right, forward, things like that. Do I wish I could speak more Spanish? 100%. And I wish I would have put in more time.
Yeah, I agree with Brent. I picked up Duolingo maybe about a year ago, and I just heard about it and thought, okay, I should learn some of these basic terms and whatnot. But, same thing. Yeah, I can tell them left, right, solo, things like that, that I think, in all honesty, is pretty helpful for those players. And I think it also earns respect, for guys that at least try to communicate with them. I think it's an incredible challenge that those players have to face, whether you're coming from Latin America, Central America, or even in Europe, to come here and have to speak a different language is a challenge in and of itself. So, yeah, it's something that I wish I had probably worked a little bit harder on in the past.
Question 13 comes from Eric Nelson in the supporters section. What's the funniest thing Coach Heath has ever yelled at you? Keep it quick.
Oh man, there's a lot. One of the things I've gotten from him a bunch in training is if I'm like complaining about the rules or the calls too much in training, he'll say, "Hey Brent, are you the referee or you want to be the ref?" Yeah. And there's no rebuttal. When he says that to you, there's nothing you can say back. Just kind of crush it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And he'll do this one. Get on with it. Just get on with it, and he's kind of one of these things where it's like, when he says it with his accent and you're just, again, we're probably complaining about an out call or like that guy took too many touches here. He's just kind of saying like, just move on, like get out of my face kind of thing. But he doesn't really, he doesn't yell like a bunch of funny things, I guess is what I would say. Sometimes it's funny whatever he says to us in the moment, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily funny. The timing is maybe funny, but they're a little explicit at times as well.
Do you find it hard then in training when he says something like that not to have a little snigger?
I mean,
I have had a snicker with him before. It doesn't go over very well.
Yeah, that's true.
I bet. Okay, question 14 from Andy Valentine in section 113. Why do players wear vests under their jerseys? On a hot day, it looks like that would be uncomfortable.
Ethan?
They're just they're GPS tracking devices. They have a device in the back of them, and in the front there's a heart rate monitor, and it's all for the strength and conditioning coaches to be able to monitor us during games, during practices. They get live numbers so that they can dictate what we're doing in training based on what they're seeing in numbers, and they can do that individually and collectively for the group.
I hated it at first. I hated it so much. But now I'm so used to it at this point. I would feel really weird training or playing in a game without it on. It'd be like being in a car without having your seatbelt on. So it just doesn't bother me anymore at this point.
All right, Cal, I got one for you now. Jason Zeman, section 9. How do you practice or stay in play-by-play shape when there's nothing to live call? This is a great question.
I do things like this. That is a really intriguing question because obviously I can't really call anything. I refuse to do these things around the house where I would call my wife cooking a dinner. I'm not a fan of that. That's not me.
I don't know. That would be entertaining, though. That would be good content.
Oh, please make a video. We need a video of that.
No, we did something which you can find on the Minnesota United YouTube page a couple of years ago where I called regular events in the office. This was back in the expansion season, I believe.
I think I've seen this.
I just
brilliant.
I hate calling sheets of paper, flying out of a printer and everything. It was just, it was bizarre. But to answer the question, the only thing I've been doing recently, I guess, is I've actually been speaking to a lot of my peers, a lot of very, very well-known broadcasters worldwide who have given me a lot of feedback. And, it's been a really, really good couple of weeks to try and get some feedback and make yourself better. So I guess that would be the answer to that question. For you guys, question 15 is from Star in section 15. Which forward on the Loons would actually be good if moved back to defence? And conversely, which defender would make the best forward?
I mean, I think Schoenfeld. I mean, he's going to be pissed that I said that.
Oh no, this is you're spot on. You're spot on.
I think Shoney could do it. I mean, he's pretty fast, so he can turn and run. You know, he's big enough that he can be winning some headers. He's already pretty good in the air offensively. You could probably teach him some of the defensive principles of, you know, where you want him to head the ball and attacking the ball. So he's my one going that way. On the other side, who could go up top? Look at Brent. He's just staring at me like, is your
No.
Look at him. He wants it so bad.
The answer's not me.
I mean, my answer is actually Romaine. I think Romaine as an attacker, he already hits a heavy ball.
What's up?
So he'd be mine.
I'll be right back. Hold on.
Clearly, Brent Storm doesn't agree with that, Ethan.
I guess.
Roman Mitten, has been a fabulous acquisition to Minnesota United, hasn't he? And you playing on that side with him on a consistent basis must have been a thrill.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of want. Sometimes I find myself standing because of, you know, what he's doing. Right, he's going 1-on-1 or 2v1 against guys, and he gets out of stuff, and he's a really technical player for a right back.
what's the dog's name?
That's Winter.
Winter.
Where she is.
For the name.
What's that?
Where's the inspiration for the name come from?
You'd have to ask my girlfriend Jenna. She named her.
Okay.
She's probably a big. It's probably because she likes Game of Thrones. So every time Winter's coming in the room, she can say Winter is coming. As far as your question, I would have to say Schoenfeld, along with Ethan, because when you play small-sided with Schoenfeld, he is like. It's something as a defender you appreciate the most. When the guy who's defending at the front does the work, it makes a huge amount of difference. And he is very responsible when it comes to defending, and he gives the effort. As far as the defenders, I would say it's a tie between Ike and Boxy. When we do finishing drills and training and everybody's taking part of crossing and finishing, when Boxy's on, he's the best finisher on the team, I think. Like, sometimes he's so good in training. And then Ike, because when he went up top at the end of the Open Cup game last year, it looked like he was going to score 3 or 4 times in that last few minutes. So
I can't even imagine Ike up top. I don't know.
With the amount of crosses we put in, I don't know.
Maybe.
That's true.
On Boxy. Remember the game against San Jose last season, the 3-1 victory, when he played the 1-2 off the Earthquakes defender's face?
What a genius. What a genius.
Slotted it away perfectly. I agree with you there. Question 16 comes from Bobby Kettler. What are you most looking forward to when we play our first game back at Allianz?
I'm looking forward to soccer. I mean, that'll mean that we're back playing. And at this point, you know, that's all I can ask for. So, you know, whether there's actually going to be fans there or not, you know, we have no control of that. Obviously, you hope that there is, because you know, our last memories of there, you know, weren't great in a way, kind of letting ourselves down and the fans down. But you know, for me, it would be a signal that we're back playing soccer, and that's where we want to be.
Brent?
Agreed. He nailed it.
This question comes from Craig Freeman, who is in section 16 on a match day. It says, my son wants to know, what is the best thing for a U10 player to work on while stuck at home?
Go ahead, Coach Brent.
I would say just touching the ball every single day. You can just – the more and more you touch the ball, you familiarize yourself with it. And you can get a lot better, especially when you're that age. Just touching the ball every day, you're gonna continue to get better. I used to do something in my parents' basement where I would spread out the furniture in a way where I could dribble around at pace and go in and out and keep the ball close. I don't think they liked it very much, but it was just some kind of a creative way to get touches and try to do something I could possibly be doing in a game.
Yeah, touches are key.
Yeah, I absolutely would agree. This is an interesting question, which I would love to get to, because we are actually having a podcast with Sam Lawson, who is the Minnesota United video analyst, which, if you keep your eyes peeled on mnufc.com, you'll see in the next week or so. The question comes from Scott Kerson in section 35, and he asks, can you describe how video is used by you, both privately and with the team, to prepare during the season for an upcoming match? What specifically do you look for?
So, videos usually sometime midway through the week, and we'll look at the other opponent. Usually start with some type of a PowerPoint that talks, a little bit about their formation and what maybe we think their prospective lineup will look like, going into that week, maybe what they've played in the past. Most teams, it's pretty easy to figure out. You kind of have an idea, but sometimes some teams are shuffling between different formations. And then from there, there's, a various amount of clips that is going to show some of their offensive shape, some of their defensive shape, their set pieces, and then, I would say we don't focus too much necessarily on how we're going to, go up against what they're doing on their set pieces. For example, we kind of try to figure out, what we can exploit, what areas that we think are vulnerable when we're looking at things like set pieces. But, from an individual standpoint, we had Tango match analysis, which we don't have anymore, but, that would go back. I could watch my clips from, my rookie season, every touch, every header, every throw in, whatever it was. So that was a great tool to be able to use to watch like an individual player. To give you an idea, I'd watch a left back and see what his tendencies were. You can watch, a game, or you can watch 30 or 40 minutes of touches, and you'll figure out, where's he comfortable with it? Where does he like to go in these types of situations? What to look for when he's going to cross a ball or when he's going to cut it, when I'm defending him. And, just little things like that is what I'll try to pick up on. Usually on a left back, I'll look sometimes at center backs and their positional, and maybe there's some gaps that I could possibly exploit. So you're looking for those tendencies. And then, the real thing is, can you transition that to seeing that on the field in the moment live, and then being able to be on the same page with your teammates to make those plays happen.
For me, Sam does a really good job. And if you go to him the week leading up to a game or a couple weeks out and you want specific clips, you ask him for what you want, and I'll give him exactly what I want, what I'm looking for, and he'll send me clips later that day. And I can just watch them leading up to the game. I'll find clips of teams that are playing a similar way that we are going to line up, I think, in a way that we're going to approach the game. And I kind of try to watch the matches that apply the most to what we're going to do. So an example would be the few games last year where we played a 3-5-2. I found a match that team had earlier in the year where they were up against a 3-5-2 and watched kind of what they tried to do, and then kind of picked what I liked and what I didn't like from the guys that were playing the position I was going to play in the game.
And once again, for more on the video analyst Sam Lawson, keep your eyes peeled on mnufc.com later this week. Myself and Kindred St. Aubin will be speaking to him a little later this week. Interesting question here from Andrea Saavedra in section 32. If you weren't playing professional soccer, what career would you be working in?
Finance, stock market. Yeah. I love numbers. I love the grind. Like, it sounds really sick, but like, I always thought like I was either going to be a lawyer, which I would never have wanted to read that much, so I probably wouldn't have made it. But I loved like Gordon Gekko, and you watch those movies, The Wolf of Wall Street or something like that, and you're like, I mean, this guy, he's obviously a little bit of a slimy character, but just like that whole like rat race of like those guys who work in private banking, private equity and whatnot. I don't know, it's always fascinated me. I studied finance at school, and I just really enjoy like the idea of the markets and how that world works, because I think it is another world, and a world that not many people understand, and there's a lot of people pulling levers and strings at that level. But I don't know, it's fascinating to me. Boring, I'm sure, to many, but I like numbers. So
for me, I have no idea. I feel like I wouldn't be totally truthful if I said play poker professionally, because I don't know if it's something that I, one, could do. Two, it just seems like an incredibly stressful way to live, because they're gonna have downturns and downswings just because there's so much variance involved. I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I can understand why. It's there's no better job in the world, I'm told, than a professional soccer player. So I understand why you would say that. So before we head on to, we have some individual questions for you both. This is an interesting question from Adam Copland, who says, before subs come on into the match, the coaches earnestly review something on a clipboard with the players. What sort of tactics are helpful at that point? What has changed since half-time?
It's set pieces, almost always going to be set pieces. So they're going to go over with you right away your assignments on things like defending corners or wide free kicks, or attacking corners and wide free kicks. And then also there's times when a sub comes onto the game that the team's going to switch the formation. So they might quickly show you what we're going to move to, and then it's going to be your job when you go out there to communicate with the guys and how the team's going to set up for the rest of the way.
Ethan, am I nodding in agreement?
Yeah. He's spot on. It's usually always set pieces, and sometimes it's a straight swap, and other times it's, you're going to move to this position and move, player X to that position. So then you have to relay that message.
What we'll do now then, as I said, we'll go into individual questions for you. We'll do 5 each, because I know you've both got some intense Netflix watching to do. Ethan, we'll start with you. Who on the team do you believe is the most competitive and can't stand to lose at anything?
Oh, man. I can't pick myself, right?
No, I was going to say, he wants to say himself so bad. Say yourself.
Well, I mean, I'm going to exclude myself from this, because it is a really good question. Man, who else is in there that I think, would want to go to blows with me? Yeah, Brent might be there.
Maybe.
I'd say it's one guy that comes up, and not every day sometimes, but Ozzy is one of these guys who if he's triggered and he wants it, then he's going to be out there and he's willing to fight you for it, like literally fist fight you for it. And I'll give him a lot of credit, because he always kind of keeps it like within the lines. He actually would never get into like an altercation like that, but he gets hard, he tackles hard, and then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, this guy's 34 and he's moving better than half the guys, if not most of the guys out here right now. Like, he just got this little spark about him, and he will, I'm telling you, he can mess you up in a 5-on-5 game. He can take it over. And so he's one of these guys who he gets ultra competitive. So I'd say Ozzy.
Okay. Brent, this is from Steve Lilly in section 11. You find yourself having to fight for a place in the team, something you've managed to do on several occasions in the past. What motivates you to succeed, other than the fight to be the best footballer in the family?
Well, that's not a fight anymore. I think I've cemented that. No, it's just the same as always. I just want to be the best player I can be. I love the feeling of helping the team win and get points. So that motivates me a ton, is to get myself into a place where my form is good enough that when I get an opportunity, I can do the job at a high level and I can help us win games. That I get a lot of pleasure from that. And the second I feel like I can't do that anymore, where I'm not helping the team get points, is I think when I'll hang them up.
Okay. All right, Cal, we got one here for you. This is coming from Aaron Craven in section 110. Says, what is the most memorable game you have called?
Oh, dear me. How long have we got? Wow, that's a very interesting question. I think so first of all, one that comes to mind was the playoff game against Kansas City last year, when you chaps won it last minute through Hassani Dalton, which was wonderful. In MLS, that sticks out, and I guess it's because it's fresh. In Europe, I remember doing a game in Bundesliga. It was 4-4 between, it was Borussia Dortmund, and I think it was Werder Bremen. And I, from what I remember, Werder Bremen had done very well and had gotten themselves, I think it was 3-1 at one stage. And Dortmund pulled it back at 4-4, literally with the last kick of the game, which was insane. The other one, I know I'm cheating here by listing off a couple. Again was at Borussia Dortmund. It was a game against Wolfsburg. And Marco Reus had scored midway through the first half. And then there was zero opportunities. Then it was a very defensive-minded game. I thought to myself, right, well, this is going to end 1-0. Wolfsburg get themselves a penalty kick in the last minutes. The left back, Rodriguez, I think, Swiss left back, played in the World Cup. I think it's Rodriguez. He equalised, and I thought, okay, right, then it's 1-1, no problem. And then out of absolutely nowhere, the ball was slipped through by, I believe it was Aubameyang, into Shinji Kagawa. And Kagawa just, slotted it past the goalkeeper. And that was the last kick of the game. Chaps, I have never, ever, ever seen the stadium erupt. Like the stadium was shaking. And we're in the commentary position trying to and it's shaking. And I've never, ever felt that in a secure environment. I mean, there's been plenty of rickety stadiums that have done games from in the past that have shook because of the poor nature of how they were built. But, Signal Iduna Park is an unbelievable arena. And if you ever have the chance, you must go. But I've never felt the stadium shake. And that wall to the left, at least from where the commentary position is, that wall to the left-hand side, which holds just about as much as Allianz Field does in itself.
Wow.
I've never, ever seen anything explode like that. That was insane. Also, watching Zlatan play for Manchester United was very interesting as well. I know I've completely butchered that question. I apologise. Ethan, okay, so question from Max Cervantes in section 37. After your knee injury in 2018, was there a game in 2019 when you felt like you were back to 100%?
So that was a great question. I brought this up to my wife. I thought, what game do you think it was? Just to get an idea on what she thought. And it was really between two games, and I think she was on the other one. But for me, it was Kansas City at home Open Cup. Just the chances I created that day, and I think how fast I felt that day was just kind of one of those moments where I was like, okay, you're back to being that dangerous player that you once were. So that was the one that I was thinking about. The other one would have been the Dallas game in about mid-August, because that was kind of a game like for a will of attrition, really, that whole game, because of how hot it was that day. And we had some guys who I think it was our second game in like 3 or 4 days or whatnot. We knew we had a tough week coming up, so to kind of be able to go back out there 3-4 days later and put on the individual performance, and I always try to get my my physical numbers afterwards to really validate whatever you do on the field, whether you score, get an assist, or you think you play well. I want to know where I'm at physically. And I remember that game in particular with the conditions was one of the highest high speed running and amount of ground cover that I'd had. So those are the two games that really stick out, but probably that Dallas game really cemented that I was back to that 2015 form.
Brent, this is a rather intriguing question for you from Kayla Christensen in section 37. Any chance we're going to see you grow back your hair? We're missing the headband.
No, and it's not even a possibility at this point. That's why. My hair is quickly receding and thinning, so it's not even possible.
I think the pony would look even sicker now, actually.
You know what's funny? Eric Miller called me up. This was a few months ago now. Eric Miller called me up one morning and said, "Hey, I had the weirdest dream about you last night." He said, "I ran into you at a bar, and you were absolutely hammered, and you were rocking this crazy mullet." And he said it was just the most random. It was the most random dream. One of the most random dreams he's ever had. So maybe a mullet.
Please, please, please do it. It would be a thrill for all of us, Brent. Please. You'd be what would you be? You would be the Minnesotan with the mullet or something like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he would.
Ethan, this comes from Adam Faust in section 29. Ethan, did you always have the pros in your sight throughout college? And did you ever consider any foreign leagues?
Yeah, great question. I honestly, you always have that kind of dream or, hope that you could somehow become a professional, but I don't think it became a reality until really I went to Creighton. I really grew up there, to be honest with you. And I needed kind of a little bit of kick in the arse. And I think I got that with being a 17-year-old going to play with 21, 22-year-olds who were men and, starting to live a real life, which was really helpful. So it was probably sometime right there, my sophomore year, where I thought, okay, this could happen for me. And, you start hearing buzz and whatnot. As for exploring foreign leagues, I went over to Sweden between my junior and senior year on trial. Had to, pay your own way so you can keep your eligibility. And I was never really close to ever signing necessarily over there, but I think the experience was good. I spent 2 weeks over there with Young Shealy was a club that I was involved with over there. So it was a nice experience. And I, at that time, thought, okay, I'd love to come back to Europe. The passion they have for soccer there was incredible. And outside of that, after 2015, there was a little bit of talk about going to Germany, but never really went down a path where it was really, even a real possibility. There was just a little bit of interest, which at the time I was kind of like on the cusp of like feeling like, oh, that would be a great opportunity, but also renegotiating the deal to stay with Columbus. So I obviously chose the latter in the end.
Brent, this is from Victoria Turnquist in section 12. What do you enjoy most about playing defence? This is a long question. So what do you enjoy most about playing defence? The least? How would you describe your approach, style of play when it comes to the game overall? When you first started playing soccer, did you start out as a defender? If not, why the switch? What do you wish for yourself in 2020? And there's a little message here for you. It says, PS, a message just for Brent. I'm a big Kallman fan. Keep your head up. You've got support and friends in your corner. I'm cheering for you. So there you go.
Okay, well, that's a lot. But first, I'll say thank you for the kind words, Victoria. They're appreciated. Let's see here. So I did not play defense at first. I was an attacking player. I was a striker from when I first started playing all the way up until I was about 15 years old. And then I wasn't scoring as many goals. I was somebody who grew late, and I developed physically later. So as I got slower, I became less effective up top, and I wasn't figuring out how to score goals. So they moved me back into the central midfielder. And that's kind of where I stayed. I played as a holding midfielder from when I was like 15, 16 years old until I was basically a pro all the way through college. I rarely played center back in college. I was mostly a holding midfielder. So as I got older, I just kind of kept getting moved further and further back. Let's see what else was in there.
What do you enjoy most about playing defense?
Oh, the most about playing defense? Man, I really like the personal challenge that is brought on by the guys you're playing against. So especially in MLS, you're playing against so many different strikers, different types of guys, guys that have different tendencies and different strengths. So just the challenge that's presented week in and week out of adjusting and playing certain guys differently and trying to do the best you can is something I really enjoy. So that kind of personal battle is something I really like. The least I like the most about defending is probably the stress that comes along with it. It's a very stressful area of the field where one mistake can lead directly to a goal, and at this level, oftentimes it does. So it can be pretty stressful. Did we get it all, or is there anything else in there I missed?
I think you're all good there.
Outlook for 2020. I want to hear that.
My personal outlook for 2020. Okay. I believe that I've gotten better every single year of my life that I've played soccer pretty much. So I want to keep that going. I'm going to be 30 years old by the end of the year. I want to feel like I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been this year.
Okay. Good goal to have. Ethan, we're once again going to turn to Victoria Turnquist, who again is in Section 12. She obviously is a big fan of Brent, but also of you as well. Get ready for this question. How do you feel about the newcomers to the roster as a midfielder, new teammates playing in all directions with you? Do you think the season will be challenging as the team hasn't had much time to create fluidity, assuming you've had less time together due to the staying at home situation? As someone senior on the team and a midfielder, do you feel you'll have more of an obligation to transition the plays from defence to offence? I say yes. You're our Minnesota United FC glue guy, the guy that holds everything together. But I want to know your thoughts, and also what do you wish for yourself in this coming season?
Yeah. So I'll start, I guess, at the top there. Anytime you have new players in, you view it through some different lenses. So, you can view it as obviously a challenge, right? You're bringing in players to challenge for maybe your position or to challenge for spots elsewhere on the field, which I think is a positive thing. I think the best players have the ability to respond and to come back when they're challenged. And I think the better players we bring into our team, we just create, better depth. With the teams that I think usually are, playing an MLS Cup and making deep playoff runs, are teams that have great depth and have players that they bring off the bench that people always say, wow, they've got that guy coming off the bench. He could start on so-and-so. Victor Rodriguez was a good example of that for Seattle last year. There's a lot of people like, how are they leaving him off the starting, roster? But there was a reason, right? They had a lot of depth and guys had, won out their positions and they kept going on with what worked. So I think that's great. I think we need to continue to do that. I think every year that I've been here, the club has always done that. They have, whether it be, a guy that we're very confident in, bringing a guy in that is going to compete with them, or it's bringing another guy in that is going to be, hey, you guys have to fight for this job, and the best man will essentially win. I think that's great mentality to have. As for transitioning, players in the league, I mean, you always want to help them out, but you also know we're competing for jobs, so there's a little bit of a fine line there. I'm always one who is willing to help guys out, but there's obviously a point where it gets where we're competing for the same job and for the same minutes, yet we're still fighting for the same goals together week in, week out. So there's a fine line there, and I think you learn that as a professional. How many questions to ask and when to ask for help from a veteran player, for example, and vice versa. When you become a veteran, you kind of know when that, those moments are to help a player out during a tough time, maybe. The glue guy comment is, it's.
Do you think you're a glue guy? Are you a glue guy?
I'll be honest, Victoria, this might surprise you. I'm not a glue guy. And that's not like I'm not throwing shade even at myself. I'm just being very honest and very frank. I'm a very direct person, and sometimes I actually rub people the wrong way. So for me, it's one of those things where I'm always cordial with guys off the field and whatnot, but I think I can also rub people the wrong way at times because of my competitiveness and my nastiness. But, next to my family, and friends, my teammates are guys that I absolutely love and are willing to fight for. And so sometimes they get the wrath of that, just like you do with sometimes your family members.
This is a compliment for Ethan. He's one of the epitome of you hate them when they're not on your team, but you love them when they are.
Thank you, Brent.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I used to hate you, and now I love
you. Did we lose Cal? Brent, should I ask you your last question?
I just had to plug my phone in. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I've got one for you. Adam Faust, Section 29. Brent, I was captain of my high school team in 1998 in the Twin Cities. However, I didn't understand the game until watching European games. Where did you turn to for your soccer knowledge?
Okay. For my soccer knowledge, my coaches probably. They're the people I was around when I was 15, 16, 17 that they were the experts of the game. And I learned a lot from those guys. And then when I went to Creighton, that was a huge jump for me because you're learning from higher level coaches, but more importantly, I think you're playing with higher level players. And those are the guys that I turn to. Even if it's not asking questions, it's watching guys and certain things they do. So I was a midfielder in college, so I used to watch Greg Jordan, my teammate Greg and Sergio all the time, and try to steal things from them. There were certain touches that Greg would do in turns that I'd never seen before that I started practicing and I actually got pretty good at. And that's something that stayed consistent for me. When I became a pro with the team in 2013, I hadn't had much experience playing center back. In those first 2 or 3 years, watching guys like Pitch, Cristiano Diaz, and Thiago, I learned a ton. Like that was where I kind of started to really learn my craft, was by watching those guys day in and day out. And they were also very helpful. Something Ethan talked about a little bit ago about asking questions, the guys helping you out. Those guys did a lot for me. So I would have to say my teammates are who I turn to.
Nice.
Question number 2 for Ethan from Jason Zeman in section 9, plus several others, I guess, asked this question. We know it's impossible to replicate training and matches from a fitness perspective. What are players doing to try and maintain a base level of fitness during the pandemic?
Well, you're kind of throwing it back to the old days where you have to kind of do it on your own, and it forms a little bit of accountability within our group, individually and collectively. So, Josh McAllister, our head of strength and conditioning director, has tailored plans out for players for what they have. So if a guy has a treadmill, for example, or a bike at the house, there's a specific plan for that. And then, players, we have certain weights that we've been given and boxes and whatnot. So trying to make do with what we got, but we're still working out and trying to do things 3, 4, 5 days a week, just depending on the week. And he's tailoring those weeks. Hope, based on, when the return to play order will get lifted and we can start going back again. So everyone has an individual plan that's tailored to them, but it's a lot of, outside doing your own running and, doing home workouts and things like that, and trying to get touches whenever you can.
Chaps, apologies. I dropped out then. I thought I'd just go for a little run. It's just the times we're living in at the moment. And, it's,
You're good.
It's
no problem.
So I heard you, Ethan. You were answering a question there.
Yeah,
and
I answered from John Zeman, talking about replicating training and matches from the fitness perspective.
Right. Okay. Well, in that case, Brent, let's go to you then and go to Teresa Pettersson in section 2, who was asked, has your mom forgiven us for chanting, our Kallman is better than your Kallman, when you played for Des Moines Menace against Minnesota in the Open Cup, now that they cheer for you?
Yeah, I'm sure enough time has passed that she's probably forgiven you guys. Yeah, that was a funny one. And
was there another player? There's another Kallman? Yeah.
Yeah, for people who don't know, I was playing the summer before my senior year at Creighton. I was playing for the Des Moines Menace, and we played against Minnesota. It would have been the Stars at this point. Twice that summer. We played them in a friendly once, and then we also played them in the Open Cup. So that was pretty fun. I got to play against the Minnesota team, and my brother was obviously starting and playing every game at that point. So we got to play against each other, and apparently I didn't even hear this when I was on the field. The Dark Clouds or the supporters group were chanting, our Kallman is better than your Kallman. Well, they were wrong. And also, I think my mom, I think she was probably pretty pissed off because at this point in my soccer career, I was pretty much flying under the radar, and maybe I hadn't gotten some of the respect that I felt I deserved or that I was that I had earned, and I think she was probably pretty pissed off to just have to sit there and listen to me taking crap from the supporters. So, but yeah, I'm sure she's forgiven you guys.
It's a fabulous story. Ethan, on that note, where have you gotten the most abuse?
Where have I gotten the most abuse? Probably Portland. I mean, Portland, I hear it from Portland ever since MLS Cup 2015. I mean, I got it even, leading up to this season when we were playing them. The backstory, if you don't know, is Villafania was there. They had maybe just brought him in maybe that year. And my quote, I guess, that week leading up was, I felt like I had a good matchup or something along those lines. Like I felt good about our situation. Really all I was saying was, this is a good player, but I like where we're at. I like how we're playing, and that got misconstrued, and they made a big storyline out of that and said that I was essentially discounting their ability defensively and going almost at Villafania in his game. So I always relished the opportunity to play against Portland, and it was nice obviously to play against them early this season, and obviously with Villafania back. People will still tell me, tweet at me, well, we still have the ring, we still have the championship, even though you got the best of us on this night. So I can't say anything back to that because it's truthful. It is what it is, but I always do kind of relish that opportunity to go against those fans. And they're great supporters. Brent will attest to this. You kind of appreciate those kind of people, right? You appreciate the people that, they go after you. They go hard. I mean, I got a buddy who plays there, Steve Clark, and, he had a very memorable MLS Cup, probably the one he wants to forget at times. But, that guy's got an unbelievable personality, a hardened person, that's for sure. And even him now there took a lot of flack from those supporters. So, it's, when you have that real raw, like, support that comes out in that passion, any player will tell you they love it, and it energizes you if they're cheering for you or even against you.
Yep.
Right, chaps. Before we wrap this up, just a couple of little notes here. This first one comes from Casey Mullen in the supporters section. She says, May 1st is my birthday. Can I get a happy birthday from you guys?
Happy birthday, Casey. I know it's a weird time, but I hope you're able to enjoy it.
Happy birthday, Casey. Enjoy it.
This is sort of directed at Ethan from Arvin Mozunda in section 114. He says, more of a thank you than a question. Your slide roll celebration against Real Salt Lake last year continues to be popular in our household, and our 5-year-old keeps trying to emulate that. It wasn't your most graceful moment, was it?
It really wasn't.
Is that when the turf came up?
Oh, it's all time, yeah. Yeah. So let me tell you guys a little, like, when you go through a traumatic knee injury, the one thing that you want to be able to do coming back is not only score a goal and come back healthy, but the knee slide is the very last, level of this whole thing, right? Putting a lot of pressure on your knee anyways. I took a lot of flack from Stacey Harden and our doctors afterwards. I think because I did it one and because it looked so bad. But, I mean, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, this is the moment. And I go to the one corner that's gotten sun on it for the last, 30 minutes of the game, and all the water had dried up. I thought it was still damp out there. And, man, that's a forgettable moment in my career. So I've enjoyed plenty of the gifts that people have made fun of me, and I'm glad that some people can find humor in it, I guess, at home. But I would tell your son that maybe it should be more graceful than my impression.
Okay then, chaps. Before we let you go, one more question, and I'm dying to know the answer. Best player you've ever played with, and then best player you've ever played against.
Go ahead, Brent.
I'll go first. Best player I've ever played with, probably Ibsen. Even though there were moments where he could be a train wreck. The thing about Ibsen is he would either be the best player on the field, and this was the same in training as it was in games. He'd either be like the best player on the field or he'd be one of the worst. But when he was on, I've never seen a player like it. He was an absolute genius. His ability to maneuver in small spaces and keep the ball and play forward. You rarely ever would see this guy play backward. He's just an unbelievable talent. And then the best player I've ever played against, playing against Wayne Rooney was really difficult. He's guys that have really intelligent movement and timing are the hardest guys to play against for a center back. And he was constantly, the way he was moving, he was constantly trying to manipulate me. And I think I was playing next to Wyatt that game. He was trying to manipulate us, right? He was trying to either pull one of us out to get in behind. There were times when he would try to pull one of us out so that one of his teammates could run in behind. Or he would just try to drag you out so he could find space for himself in the box. So Rooney really was a master.
Yeah, mine's quick, easy. Federico Higuain. by far. One of the most talented players I've ever played with, and I still think to myself that guy could have been playing in Europe. And crazy to me that he did for a little while, but he was, an unbelievable player, and one of the best 10s that I've ever seen play in this league firsthand. And I honestly mean that. The best player I've played against is Thierry Henry. Thierry, when I remember playing against him in my rookie and second year, they came to Columbus. April, I want to say, is when it was, and afternoon game, the big star is going to show up, and they showed up. I mean, he dominated. I think he had a goal and 3 assists to Kenny Cooper, and he was just unbelievable how powerful he was and big he was. I had never really experienced playing against an athlete like that at any point in my life then, and even since then. He amazed me in his ability and how physically gifted he was.
Wonderful, intriguing stuff, chaps. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Really, really appreciate it. For those of you watching, remember, if you can, keep everything local. Support each other. Do whatever you can. We'll get through this, and we're all really looking forward to seeing you at Allianz Field. Chaps, if you wouldn't mind, before we sign off, a message to the fans, please.
Yeah, just stay safe, and we're going to get through this, and on the other side of it is going to be some soccer, obviously, and we're all looking forward to getting back to Allianz Field and to getting back in front of you guys.
Yep, same for me. Just wishing everybody the best. Hoping that everybody can stay healthy, and then just find ways to keep happy and keep yourselves going until we get back.
Stay safe, stay at home, Minnesota. Looking forward to seeing you at Allianz Field. Chaps, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.